Hello and welcome to the Round So Far for Round 20, all brought to you, of course, by Amy. I'm Xander McGuire and I'm joined, as always, by Kate McCarthy. And, well, Kate, it's been a round of beltings. That's all you can really say. Not all of them maybe have gone how you might have expected, and there's been a few twists and turns, and maybe none more notable than Jeremy Cameron kicking 11 goals. 11, it's heaven, as Martin Tyler would say if he was in the commentary box, Kate. But he was just everywhere and kicking them in all sorts of ways tonight at Marvel Stadium.
Well, it was a heaven if you are a Cats supporter, maybe not so much if you are a North Melbourne supporter, but he was doing whatever he wanted at Marvel Stadium. Obviously, celebrating 25 years of Marvel Stadium. We thought we might see a new record, but just couldn't quite eclipse Mark Lacroix's 12 goals in 2010, but Jezza, he was everywhere. He kicked 11. They were looking for him, yes, but he still had to finish in front of the big sticks, and that's exactly what he did. And he has pretty much got two hands on the Coleman now. He has an unassailable lead. He will be celebrating yet another Coleman and had a very nice performance tonight.
And just amazing the different ways that Jeremy Cameron kicks these goals as well. You know, we say that he was a bit of a bear in the square in the end. They were kicking it long to him, but he gets them on the run. He takes big marks. He's just been an incredible player and could be a player, we think, that might hit that elusive three-figure mark if all things go his way.
Yeah, well, let's have a look. So at the conclusion, or at this stage, he's kicked the 69 goals with his 11 tonight.
Yep.
Now, they played Port Adelaide earlier this year. He kicked 7. Against Essendon, he kicked 6, and that was when they had most of their key stocks still in the team at Essendon. Yep. They're yet to play Sydney. And against Richmond, he kicked 4 as well. I think he's every chance, especially, obviously, we're going to include finals in this. If he gets to finals, they're going to, at least you would think, with their draw on the way home, looking at that, they'll make it into a top 4 position.
Yes.
So he'll play 2 finals at least. Geez, it would be good for the game if he could kick 100 goals,
Starting
would it
to
not?
look likely. Imagine a Friday, Saturday, Thursday night, big game in a final, and 80,000, 90,000 people stream onto an MCG.
Would they allow it? Would they allow them to storm the stadium if we finally saw 100? Surely.
Well, we remember that Gil McLachlan photo. He had the thumbs up. He didn't really mind. Andrew Dillon, the ball is in your court. Let's go to one of those goals, in particular the 10th one, and it's sort of emblematic of the effort that the Roos, I guess, were putting in and how this ended up happening through the night.
Yeah, so this is less than a minute into the fourth quarter, and just have a look at the defensive transition here from the Kangaroos. So look at the blue jumpers that are still on the far side of the ground, a lot still inside their forward 50 as well, and the ease at which the Geelong Football Club is moving this football. Who do you think the target inside forward 50 might be? Maybe the man that's kicked 9 goals up until this point. But with all seriousness, this is the first 100-point margin, 100-plus point margin we have seen all year. And for me, this is the worst performance of the year from North Melbourne. It was lacklustre. There was no defensive pressure. I understand that there is a huge gap in experience in these two teams, but what they rolled out was really disappointing. And I think you'd be very disappointed if you're a North Melbourne fan, because you thought your club was probably past this point, and it was overall just a really disappointing evening for North Melbourne.
Where next for this North Melbourne side? I mean, we're deep into Clarko's third season at the helm. They were 17th first year, 17th second year, looking at 17th again. 3 wins, 4 wins to this stage in the season. Is it ever going to turn for them?
I just thought you'd see more defensive progress than what we've seen. Obviously, that clip that we just showed, the lack of effort, the lack of transition, it's really concerning, because usually that's the first thing that Clarko comes in and implements. And the fact that they've been beaten by over 100 points this evening in round 20 in his third year under Alistair Clarkson, I think they'd be pretty disappointed with how they've progressed in that part of the ground defensively.
Well, it was a career night for Jeremy Cameron, 11 goals. His previous best was 9. Also a career night a bit further up the ground for Bailey Smith. 43 touches, a career high, and he just had the 23 and the 26 in the last 2 weeks, so he's a bit quieter, but he roared back under the roof.
Yeah, also had the 13 clearances and the 1 fan interaction here, so getting a bit of feedback from a North Melbourne fan. Having a little bit of an interaction with him. You can't keep him out of the headlines, can you, Bailey Smith? That's the way he plays his football. He's an antagonist, whether it's the opposition, whether it's the fans. He loves getting under the skin of the others that he is playing against, but it's what we've come to expect from him, isn't it?
Don't you love the fan interacting with the security guard? I was just blowing him a few kisses. There's nothing wrong with that. Oh, well, that was fantastic for Bailey Smith. Over to Adelaide, where, well, we saw another record with the showdown, the biggest ever win in one of these Adelaide derbies. It was the Crows by 98 points. Incredible, really. Riley Thilthorpe continuing his rich vein of form. 3 goals, 19 touches, and a showdown medal. He was everywhere, the big fella.
Yeah, and he had the 10 score involvements as well. I think pretty dominant display from Adelaide, clearly being able to get the win, the biggest win that they've ever had in a showdown, and kept Port Adelaide to their lowest score ever in a showdown as well. So pretty disappointing if you're a Port Adelaide fan, but you're only celebrating even more if you're an Adelaide Crows fan. Ben Keys kicked the 3 goals for. Tex hit the scoreboard. Soligo had 34 disposals as well, and I think Adelaide are now a real chance at finishing in the top 2. Of the top 9, they have the healthiest percentage by some margin. 146% is what they are currently sitting on. Big clash next Friday night against Hawthorn, but they have top 4, top 2 in their sights.
And Collingwood a little bit later on, another test, but that's at the Adelaide Oval as well. So all things sort of falling their way late potentially. Well, it wasn't as easy as it might have seemed in those highlights because the conditions were against them, against both sides. It was absolutely hosing down at the Adelaide Oval. You know when you can see the rain like that on the TV, but it was incredible conditions, wasn't it?
It was horrible. I think it's time, Xander, we talked about a roof at the Adelaide Oval, considering what other people are talking about in other parts of the country. But
yep.
I think the thing that surprised me the most, though, out of those conditions that we just saw, they still scored 133 points, the Adelaide Crows, in conditions like we just saw. There's been so much talk about their ability to play 3 key forwards and maybe it won't stack up. Well, when they can still all hit the scoreboard in conditions like that, we touched on Thilthorpe, Tex kicked 3, Fogarty hit the scoreboard, they all had impact. If they're doing it in those conditions, you think they can do it all the way through September as well.
A few divots in that ground, so the microscope might be on the Adelaide Oval turf team instead of the SCG ahead of Friday night footy. On the flip side of things, Port Adelaide, that's a massive loss, a soul-crushing loss, and it's Ken's final showdown. How disappointed would that be that they couldn't have got it done? And it ends with Ken, I think, 11 and 14 in showdowns if his career.
Yeah, I think they'd be pretty disappointed as a playing group and as a club, not for anything except for the fact that they would have really loved to send Ken Hinkley out on a better note, if not winning. Obviously, that would have been the first priority, but to go down by a record margin, it's probably something that Ken didn't quite deserve. All credit has to go to Adelaide, but they would have been pretty disappointed with that performance solely for their main man that's been in charge for so long and has done so much for that football club. So I'm disappointed for Ken that he's gone out on that note in showdowns, and no doubt they will be as well.
Well, speaking of demoralising derby defeats, let's go north to Queensland, where Gold Coast got the better of the Lions to the tune of 11 goals. It was incredible. We were expecting a response from the Suns after they got bullied by the Crows. And in your view, Kate, it came around stoppages.
It did, yeah, absolutely. It was their highest, or their club record, for points from stoppage. They kicked 84 points from that source. They also handed Brisbane their biggest stoppage differential under Chris Fagan, so negative 61 scores from that source. So Witts was dominant in the ruck. The man that we're about to speak about, Matt Rowell, he was absolutely phenomenal and just was everywhere through that stoppage. And having a look here, just some of the defensive efforts. Obviously, Dane Zorko had a bit of a bet each way on that one, and you can't really do that when the man, Noah Anderson, is getting on the end of yet another clearance and hitting the scoreboard. And this here, just a simple little switch, works Leicester under the footy. That's Jai Farah, who came in for his first game of the season, was a big inclusion as well. But yeah, I think they would have been really disappointed, the Lions, with how they rolled out there, but all credit has to go to the Gold Coast Suns. They've been bullied by the Lions previously, and this time they were the ones that were handing out the hefty defeat. 24
on a goal for Noah Anderson in the first half. But for our Saturday star, speaking of stoppage bulls, you've gone with Matt Rowell. Incredible for him today.
Had to be none other than Matt Rowell with this performance. 37 disposals, 23 of those were contested. He had 12 tackles, 15 clearances and 730 metres gained. But the thing I want to highlight the most, the previous 5 Q clashes, Josh Dunkley has had Matt Rowell's number. He's matched up with him. He has been able to keep him to an average of 18 disposals, 8.8 contested possessions, just the 4 clearances and 7 tackles. So his ability to really work through that and to be able to put on a performance that won him the Marcus Ashcroft medal in a really important game for the Gold Coast Suns, to bounce back from that loss against Adelaide Crows, as you said, Xander, and for Matt Rowell to do it in that fashion was really impressive. But I want to touch on a couple of the inclusions. So it was a big call at the selection table from Damien Hardwick. He made 5 changes to the team, but the 2 that I want to touch on are the 2 at the top of that list, Alex Davies and Jai Farah. So Alex Davies played a really important role through that midfield. He added the physicality element. He went and stood next to Josh Dunkley as much as he could to free up Matt Rao, which allowed him to play that game. But he also had 30 disposals, 10 tackles and 6 clearances on top of that. Jai Farah, 13 disposals, 3 goals, hit the scoreboard beautifully. Obviously, Sam Collins back into the team. They had the ability to rest him as well in the last quarter. But 2 of the big ones, the outs of Jed Walter, who Damien Hardwick said it was probably the hardest conversation he's had to have with a player to drop him. Wow. And the other one, Daniel Rioli, we're all talking about how big a loss that is, which it absolutely is for the Gold Coast Suns. But Joel Jeffrey has been showing most of the year that he can play that role. He stepped up and played that role beautifully in the absence of Daniel Rioli.
Shades of Hardwick from 2017 in the way that he's able to turn these players into magnificent role players that are having a huge impact on the side leading into September, which takes us back to Dimmer in 2017 and a bit of that Richmond era when he put Big Boy Month on the agenda. And let's talk about Gold Coast's performance in Big Boy Month, because they've made a number of statements, some positive, some negative. What have you made of them?
Yeah, I think they've probably passed the Big Boy Month test up until this point.
Yep.
Obviously, would have been really disappointed with last week against Adelaide. It was not up to standard, but I think they learnt very quickly that you have to play week by week in this competition, especially if you're competitive. So they were really happy and should have been really proud about their victory over the Pies, but you could see that they kind of maybe left it a little bit too long to reflect on that one and to celebrate it, because they didn't rock up at the Adelaide Oval, but they quickly turned that around against the Lions. So you got to give them a pass mark for Big Boy Month up until this point.
Let's go west for the Derby, where Fremantle ran out 49-point victors, which is probably what you would have expected at the start of the day. Hayden Young, well, how well are you going if you're subbed out of the game tactically and you still win the Glendenning Allen medal, Kate?
He's fast becoming one of the most important players in this Fremantle team, purely for what they have through the midfield. So they've got Brayshaw and Sarong. They've got Jackson that goes through there at different times, but he is a genuine point of difference for them. Getting him back from that long-term injury last week, was able to play the sub role, came on, had 11 disposals against Collingwood and had a really important fourth quarter and just continued on with that momentum. So he had 23 disposals, 8 score involvements, 7 clearances and 3 goals as well. And as you said, played 3 quarters but still won the best on ground. So keeping him on the park is an absolute must if you're a Fremantle Dockers player, because he is a key to your team going deep in September and maybe having a tilt at their first premiership.
Freo with 8 of the last 9 derbies and 9-1 since round 9, so really striking some form there. Murphy Reid, 15 score involvements. But let's talk about the other Reid, Harley. He's always the one that we end up talking about when it comes to WA. He was pretty good today, but he had a few moments again where his temperament might have got a little bit of the better of him.
Well, you can almost script what's going to happen in a Harley Reid game, can't you, up until this point? He's going to be in the thick of it. He's going to either earn himself free kicks, he's going to give away a few free kicks, he's going to get his hands on the footy, which he's been able to do pretty consistently in his last month, and he's also going to hit the scoreboard. So 15 disposals, a couple of goals to go with it, a couple of celebrations, shushing the crowd, which is questionable when you're 50-plus points down. But hey, that's Harley Reid. We love him for it. We love the way he plays his footy. Well, I do. Some people might not, but I think he's fast becoming a very likeable figure in the game, and this was a big story, though, coming out of it.
Yeah, this was the big concern for West Coast supporters and just footy fans in general. Harley Reid looking pretty sore and almost groggy, I guess, as he came off in the hands of trainers. Andrew McQualter said in his post-game press conference that that is an ankle concern and that he'll need that checked up in the coming days to determine the severity of that. You'd hate to think that Harley Reid might miss the last few games of the season, because really, he is the guy that West Coast fans are coming to watch, and with contract negotiations, ongoing for him for an extension, you'd hope that it's not the last time he plays in a West Coast Eagles jumper. That might be a bit premature, though.
I think you're jumping the gun there, Xander. He is must-watch at the moment, though. You're right.
Amazing. Tell you who else is must-watch. Liam Ryan. Move over any other Mark of the Year contenders potentially, because this was amazing.
It was, and nominated for Goal of the Year last week, and now you'd think nominated for Mark of the Year, but we'll get to a few more contenders that may have popped up over the weekend. But this one really had shades of his Mark of the Year winner over Max Gawn, just the way that he sort of went to ground, his body almost parallel to the ground as he's taking the mark, but a good display of flying Ryan, which we saw again.
We spoke about the Suns being bullied in the Queensland derby, and that's the way that it's been for the Battle of the Bridge as well. Sydney have just gotten the better of GWS in high, profile games as well, and really just put them away. This time it was GWS that came from behind, and it was an amazing win for them. 44 points doesn't really do it justice because the Swans were all over them in the first half. But talk us through that third quarter, Kate. It turned on its head.
It certainly did. They kicked 9 goals to 1 in the third term. Sydney led by 35 points, 21 minutes into the second term, and they just completely flipped this game on its head. They scored 80 points to 8 in the second half, all on the back of that huge Q3 performance from them. But yeah, it had shades of going the exact same way as every other game has gone, or most of the battles of the bridge had gone early on. And to GWS's credit, they got an almighty spray from Adam Kingsley at halftime, and they absolutely responded. And I was nothing but impressed by the way that the Orange Tsunami got going in the second half. And Jake Stringer is becoming a very important player for them in their forward line.
Well, we talk about Harley Reid taking a lot of the spotlight. Up in Sydney, it tends to be about Toby Green, and he has managed to become the big headline out of this game for a number of reasons. First and foremost, his interview with Ben Dixon at halftime, talking about Tom Papley, was eye-opening to say the least. Let's have a listen.
Tom Papley's got a little bit to say in the first half, just there. A little bit of feeling in this one.
Yeah, he's looking overweight. You'll see how he goes second half.
It's a little bit here. He was sort of teasing Jake Stringer a little bit in the first half about some skin folds, and then he gets stuck right into Toby Green there after he kicks that goal in the second quarter. But it takes us to your launch zone for tonight, Kate, because you weren't exactly entirely stoked with what you saw from Toby Green across the board.
Not from what we just saw, though. I have nothing wrong with what we just saw. I think the whole thing obviously played out in a way that Tom Papley kind of put it on the agenda, talking to Jake Stringer. Obviously, a bit of byplay there. Then Toby Green's found that out. He's had a crack at him at halftime. Have no problem with that whatsoever. And we also love the honesty from Toby Green. I know you probably always know what you're going to get with him, and it's 100% honesty. But the thing that I think we've become accustomed to seeing in Toby's game, but not for the last 12 to 18 months. And it's what we saw play out with the MRO incident that he's ended up getting a week for on Isaac Heaney. And it was a pretty dirty act, really. Heaney's been wrapped up in the tackle, and Toby comes across with the forearm or elbow to the head when Isaac Heaney's in a pretty defenceless and vulnerable position, in my opinion. And so he's copped the week for it, being deemed as intentional, low impact, high contact. And I just think we've gotten to the point with Toby where this was out of his game. We know he has white line fever. We know he puts everything out there and loves the physicality of the game. But I think previously in his career, he has crossed the line and he's admitted it. And I thought we were sort of past seeing that with Toby as the captain of the GWS Giants. But it's just reared its head into the game again of Toby Green, and it's what we're talking about. And you have a very important clash this week against the Bulldogs on Thursday night, and now they're going to be without their captain in a very, as I said, a very important game. So a little bit disappointed in that behaviour. Had nothing to do with the first grab that we saw, but yeah, bit disappointed.
I'll wait and see to see if GWS challenge that. They have until 11 a.m. on Monday morning. They might try and say that it wasn't intentional and should actually be careless. That's a tough sell given the ball wasn't really in play. Or maybe they say that it shouldn't be low impact as it was sort of a grazing forearm and it was just worthy of a free kick. So an interesting watch there. Is it unedifying to see the captain of a football club act like that? And where do you stand? There's been discussion around maybe Toby handing it over to the next generation, but he feels like he's a spiritual leader still. What do you think?
Yeah, I think he's still the leader of that football club, and I think he rightly should be. I think he gets a response from his players. I think he has ultimate respect from his teammates and probably from his coach as well. I don't think there's any need to even question that element of it. But yeah, just tidying up those little bits, and I wasn't super happy with that behaviour and the hit on Isaac Heaney as well.
No, it has been a champion, Toby Green, but there's a lot of young stars that are coming through, and you want to highlight a few of them, particularly those that are in the midfield mix and just dominating in there.
Yeah, I want to highlight their ability to turn around their scores from stoppage, and there's a couple of things that have been sort of, I guess, contributing to this. So round 6 to 10, points for, points against. Obviously, big differential there with the negative 92 points that they're conceding to stoppage. At stoppage. Then you go to round 14 to 20, and they're plus 88 in that part of the ground. And I think there's, as I said, a couple of things. The first one I want to put on the agenda is the ability to drop Toby Bedford as a tagger. So the last few weeks they haven't rolled him out as a tagger, which gives them a genuine opportunity to go to their structure as a midfielder. And I'm a big supporter of the tagging role, of taking the best midfielder out of the game from the opposition, but it's working for GWS to play their genuine role, to have 3 mids in there and play stoppage and set up the way that they want to and not be dictated to by the competition. And the other is the emergence of Finn Callaghan. We touched on him a couple of months ago since coming back from injury, and he has been a key pillar to this midfield. His ability to run and burst away from stoppage, change lines, change angles, has been really important to those scores from stoppage.
to the other Friday night game. On this show, we dubbed it the disaster under the dome when the Bulldogs beat the Bombers by 91 points earlier in the year. Well, they went one better, 93 points for Friday night football. And, well, you wouldn't call it a disaster given the Bombers had no one on the park, but they were dominated in all facets. Marcus Bontempelli had 2 goals and 35 disposals, and yet we're not even going to talk about him right now, are we?
Let's talk about the 2 that are up the front from the Western Bulldogs. So Sam Darcy, Aaron Norton, who has just reclaimed some of his best form, Aaron Norton. And yes, the addition of Sam Darcy coming back, but these things, we haven't seen Aaron Norton fly at the footy consistently in the first part of 2025. And geez, he looks good when he's up and running and launching at the footy. And that point there, the third line of that graphic, round 20 ruck contest. Neither of them played any time during the through the ruck, and Bevo said it was because they wanted to see the 2 of them up forward, and I loved it. I didn't love it in the sense that I don't mind if Sam Darcy plays through the ruck. He loves that part of the game. He loves getting physical, but I love having the 2 of them constantly ahead of the footy and giving those options because clearly it paid off for them. They're the first duo to kick 6+ goals in quite some time, and the last duo that did it, Cyril Rioli and Buddy Franklin, so pretty nice company to have there.
Not bad, not bad players there. Let's go to the Amy Clangers for round 20, and we'll kick off with one in the showdown tonight, Kate.
Yeah, well, this looks like a beautiful centre clearance until you realise that Port Adelaide are actually going to the right of screen, and he's actually just had a score involvement lacing out one of the key forwards from the opposition, so not how you want to start a game. And then Paddy Dangerfield, this is how you want to end a game, but it's in the 4th quarter. He's just chomping down on the Suva.
Tactically subbed off there. Danger is enjoying himself on the sidelines. Let's go to Jasper Fletcher up in the Hugh Clash. Wow, what a hanger. Liam Ryan, watch out. But you got to stick the landing, and I don't mean that landing. I mean what you do next with the footy, because that is a genuine clanger. Come on, Jasper, tidy up your work, mate. That's no good.
And this one here, I mean, beautiful mark, Kalshadir, potential goal of the year nominee, but don't do it on the bloke that has had one of the most resilient careers that we've seen. Poor old Sam Doherty in his last game with a blood nose. He's potentially going to be the poster boy for the mark of the year in 2025. In his last appearance at AFL level. That's not good enough. Come on.
Sam Doherty's been doing a bit of work in the media as well. He doesn't need that damage to the face,
No,
Doc. That's no good. Well, let's stick on that game. Thursday night footy. The Hawks make it 6 wins from their last 7 games against Carlton. This game was realistically over pretty early, almost at quarter time, and the Blues sort of crept back to make it a more respectable margin. But let's talk about the Doc. This moment was amazing.
It was, and it was deserved. It was everything it needed to be, and I love the bow. We don't see too many celebrations from Sam Doherty, but his career is something to behold. I don't think he'll be too long out of the game of AFL because whatever he seems to want to do in the game, he will be well respected and obviously be welcomed back in whatever coaching capacity, media roles, whatever it might be, because he's a true champion of the Carlton Football Club. If he didn't inspire you with his performances on the field ever, just have a look at what he overcame, his adversity off the field. 2 bouts of cancer, 3 ACLs, just incredible.
There were some teething issues with Hawthorn's defence a little bit earlier in the year, and a lot of talk was about how they'd work with each other. James Sicily then became a talking point when he fought injury and took some time away, but he's playing great footy and the Hawks look really solid behind the ball.
Yeah, they do, and I think it was Tom Barrass's best game for the Hawthorn Football Club. Played a key role at times on McGuire, at times on Curnow, at times on TDK, and he was fantastic for them, and they look like they've really got that role set up for him. And James Sicily starting to find some of his best form again, obviously pushed through injury until a certain point. They decided that it wasn't worth pushing through anymore, and it's clearly been the correct decision. He got back, he had 25 disposals, started using the ball more like we know James Sicily to do, and with those 2 up and firing, the defensive side of things for the Hawks looks like it's really tracking in the right direction.
Well, that's been the round so far. Let's have a look to just the 2 games on the Sunday this weekend. We've got Richmond and Collingwood at 2:10 at the MCG, and St Kilda and Melbourne at Marvel 3:15 time slot. Kate, any thoughts, any tips for those 2 games? What do you think?
I think St Kilda have a real chance against Melbourne in that game in the afternoon. Obviously, under the lid, I think it tips it slightly back into St Kilda's favour, and Collingwood should do everything they can to get the job done clearly over Richmond.
And just quickly, speaking of Collingwood, a bit in the VFL tonight. Jordan De Goey returned for his first footy since round 8 against Geelong. You saw him at the start of that chain. He had 19 touches. And Bobby Hill, well, he was fantastic as well. Both of them playing on limited minutes. Bobby just selling the candy here in trademark style to those Frankston defenders. Frankston ended up smashing the Pies, but Bobby finished with the 3 goals and 13 disposals. So great sign for Collingwood supporters there to look forward to. And hopefully they'll be back on the track in the AFL team in not too long. Well, that's the round so far. Thank you so much for joining us on this Sunday morning. We'll catch you next week in round 21 for all the action then.